Hey everyone, I'm Teresa. Welcome to my channel, Lost My Thread. Today I'm going to be talking about some American English versus British English sewing terminology. So I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, in the Midwest of the US. Moved here to London, England when I was 21, and I've lived in the UK now for just over 15 years. So I've had some experiences myself with some confusing terminology with clothing, with bags, with sewing supplies, those kinds of things. And I thought it might be interesting, informative, and hopefully a little bit of fun to talk you through what I've learned over the years. So the first one I wanted to talk about is the word pants. So pants is one that once you know the difference, there's no confusion, but if you don't realize that there's a different usage of this word in another country, it can cause some pretty serious confusion, some embarrassing confusion as well. When Americans talk about pants, they are talking about an outerwear garment. So it's something for your lower half covering both legs as outerwear. In the UK, pants refers to underwear or underpants. So definitely two very different things for the same word. There are also a couple of other terms in both the US and the UK that are used really more to describe like a typically women's underwear, so more like a kind of frilly or lacy kind of underwear. And in the UK, that would be knickers, and in the US, that would be panties. So just to throw in a few extra terms if you're thinking, I thought they always said pants. They don't always say pants. It might be knickers in the UK. And they will say both underwear, underpants, and panties for sort of more of a traditionally ladies underwear in the US. There's one more usage of pants that I quite enjoy in the UK. And it can be used as a slang to describe when something is just a bit rubbish, a bit crappy, not that good. So an example would be, I went to the new Italian restaurant on the high street. The food was amazing, but the service was really pants. But yeah, so that's pants. Next one I want to talk about is similar in sort of the general potential confusion, which is vest. So in American English, a vest refers to an outerwear garment. It's basically a sleeveless top, a sleeveless shirt that's going to be worn over another shirt. So think like a waistcoat, like a sort of button down at the front, sleeveless sort of waistcoat that you would wear maybe as part of a three-piece suit or just on its own. Or it can even be like a sweater, what Americans would call a sweater vest, which is a sleeveless knitted sweater as well that you'd usually wear over another shirt. In the UK, a vest is going to be referring to underwear. So it's what Americans might call an undershirt. So a sleeveless t-shirt essentially that you're going to wear underneath another shirt, like a dress shirt. So as I've mentioned it already, I think a good one to go into next would be what Americans call a sweater. British people will call a jumper. So these are both referring to the same exact item of clothing, but just two different names for the same thing. This is an outerwear garment, which is going to be a knitted garment, which can be knitted by hand or by machine. A sweatshirt, on the other hand, is another item of clothing, similar outerwear, usually long sleeve, but a sweatshirt is going to be made from a knitted or a jersey or woven fabric stitched together. So another one that can be confusing that I probably am still a little bit confused by is shirt and top. So Americans, when we're talking about our upper body garment, whether it's dressy, relaxed, short sleeve, no sleeve, long sleeve, any of that is going to be called a shirt as a general term. So if I'm saying that I'm going to be making a shirt or wearing a shirt, it doesn't mean anything more specific than I'm going to be making or wearing something for my upper body. That could be a sweatshirt, dress shirt, blouse, tank top, t-shirt, anything like that is all I mean when I say that I'm going to be talking about my shirt. If you talk about a shirt in the UK, that is often going to be interpreted as a specific type of upper body garment, which is going to be more of a dressy, usually buttoned down upper body garment. That's typically going to be what British people think you mean when you're talking about a shirt. So they do have a term over here, which is a little bit similar. So a top is a more general term, a more broad term for something to be worn on the upper body as outerwear garment. But I would say that it tends to refer more commonly to women's clothing, and it's usually not going to be referring to anything that has a more specific name. So if it's a blouse or a dress shirt, t-shirt, something that already has a specific term within it, that's usually not what people mean when they're talking about a top. A top is usually something that doesn't fit into those categories. So something like a tank top, something like maybe like a looser fitting, maybe a lightweight or floaty shirt that you might wear with like a skirt or a trousers to go to work or be a little bit more dressy, that kind of a thing. But I would say that this is one that I think is a little bit difficult to pinpoint, and hopefully I've given you an idea of what British people mean by top. So one that has some similar usage but then some differences is the word cuff. So in both countries, a cuff will refer to the edge of a dress shirt that's generally going to be buttoned, and there's usually a button placket, that kind of thing going on with that kind of shirt. A cuff in the US can also refer to the bottom hem of a pair of trousers, and if you fold the hem upward and outward, that's going to be called cuffed pants. So that's cuffing your pants, cuffed pants. In the UK, if you're doing that kind of thing with your trousers where you're folding the bottom up and out, that's going to be called turn-ups. So if you're saying that you've got cuffed trousers, a British person probably will not quite know what you're talking about. So that would be the other term to use if you want to make yourself better understood. Another one that has the same definition but is two words is a turtleneck in the US is called a roll neck in the UK. So these are the exact same thing, again, just two ways of saying the same thing depending on where you are and who you're talking to. One that's a little more confusing is what Americans will call overalls. So overalls can mean quite a few things in the US, so sorry if it makes it more confusing. And one of the common usages of overalls is trousers with a bib and straps over the top, what in the UK would be referred to as dungarees. So that is one of the usages of overalls. But overalls can also refer to sort of a loose-fitting one-piece garment that you're going to wear over other clothes, sort of to protect the clothing underneath. If you think kind of like workman's clothes, what Americans might call a coverall, or it might be called a boiler suit in the UK. So that can also be what Americans are talking about when they're talking about overalls. But if you're going to be talking to an American about what a British person would call dungarees, you're going to want to call that overall so they know what you mean. So suspenders is one that has a couple of meanings in the US, but only one meaning in the UK. So in both countries, suspenders can refer to the elastic that's going to attach your underwear or a garter to the top of your stockings as part of lingerie. But in the US, suspenders can also refer to the elastic straps that you're going to wear going from the front to the back over each shoulder to keep your trousers or your pants held up. If you're referring to that specific item of clothing in the UK, that's going to be called braces. So a pair of braces or a pair of suspenders is going to be the same thing depending on where you are in the world. In both countries as well, braces can refer to the metal brackets that you have installed on your teeth to try and straighten those out. So that's the same in both places as braces, but braces has that additional meaning in the UK. So when Americans are talking about what they're going to be wearing into a swimming pool, that is typically going to be called a bathing suit. But that term in the UK would normally be swimming costume. This is one that if you do talk about a bathing suit or needing to get a bathing suit to a British person, they'll usually know what you mean, but they're probably going to be calling it their swimming costume as opposed to their bathing suit as Americans would. So what Americans would typically refer to as a costume or something they're going to wear to a costume party, if they were in the UK, that would usually be referred to as your fancy dress outfit or a fancy dress party. So if you are British and you're talking to an American and you're inviting them to your fancy dress party, I would recommend either telling them that it's a costume party or being really specific about maybe the kinds of things you want them to wear. Because I think most Americans, if they're told that they're invited to a fancy dress party, everyone's going to be in fancy dress, would quite likely turn up in a very fancy dress, a dress that is fancy. So hopefully you won't have that confusion if you realize that there are those differences between the two. So in America, when you're talking about a bag that you're going to be carrying over your shoulder or a little bag that you're going to be carrying around to store your keys, your money, your phone inside, that is going to be called a purse in the US. That same accessory in the UK would usually be called a handbag, whereas a purse is going to refer to usually a small wallet or change purse that goes into the handbag. So Americans will refer to that little, what British people call a purse, as a change purse or a wallet, depending on where you're from and how you talk about those kinds of things. So Americans, when they're referring to a bag that they're going to be wearing with straps over their shoulders, it's going to be called a backpack. That term is also used in the UK, but there's an additional term, rucksack, that is used in the UK for the exact same accessory. So if a British person's talking about a rucksack, they just mean a backpack, but they may also say backpack again, depending on who they are, where they are in the country, their age group, that kind of thing. So if we're talking about a small bag with a strap that goes around and clips the front of your waist, in America, you're going to be calling that a fanny pack, and in the UK, you're going to be calling that a bum bag. So both of those names come from the way that the accessory was originally made to be worn. So you'll have a little clip at the front and you'll have the bag just sitting above or at your lower back, essentially. So if you're American, it's going to be sitting just above what you would call your fanny, whereas in Britain, it's going to be sitting just above what you would call your bum. Now this is one to be pretty careful about, because fanny in the UK does not refer to your butt, it refers to a lady's private regions around the front. So pretty different. So fanny pack to a British person can be probably pretty comical if they're not aware that it's your rear end that is your fanny in the US. So now I'm going to get to some general sewing ones, and these are the ones that have been quite useful and important for me to figure out, and some of them I've only figured out recently after 15 years or more than 15 years of living in the UK. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a type of sewing machine sitting right here next to me. So this is what Americans would refer to as a serger. British people would call it an overlocker. So it's a type of sewing machine that has usually 4 spools of thread going into it that's going to usually cut the edge of the thread as it goes through and make a looped seam over the edge of the garment. If you're a sewing person, you know what I'm talking about with serger or overlocker, though you probably are more familiar with one term than the other. But you would also then talk about either a serged edge, an overlocked edge, serging the edge, overlocking the edge. So these nouns can also be used as verbs to describe this kind of activity. A general one that I took a little bit of time to figure out is what Americans would refer to as their sewing notions would be referred to as your haberdashery in the UK. So both of this refers to the additional odds and ends that you're going to need to make whatever you're sewing. So it will refer to threads, zippers, elastic, Velcro, buttons, all those kinds of things Americans are going to call your notions, and they're going to be called your haberdashery in the UK. And I will say I spent a lot of time on British websites trying to figure out where I'm going to find my zippers and elastics and buttons before I got to the bottom of all of that one. So you might have heard me use the word zipper. Zipper is what Americans will call the noun that British people will call a zip. So both countries will talk about zip as a verb, so zipping something, but Americans will talk about zipping your zipper, whereas a British person will talk about zipping your zip. So both countries will use the term thread when they're talking about what we've got just up here above me, but in the UK, sometimes that can also be referred to as cotton. So I have had somebody asking me, for example, do you need to buy any cotton to match that fabric? Let me see if I've got the right cotton that will be a similar color to the fabric that you're buying. And it really confused me when I didn't realize that they were referring to thread. And I think that's just because often thread used to be made from cotton, though usually it's polyester these days in all countries. But I think the term did stick a little bit. It's not going to be consistent across the board, but occasionally you hear somebody from the UK talking about cotton for your sewing project, and they may well be referring to the thread. They will also, or some people might also refer to a spool of thread as a cotton reel. And similar, I think that's just what those used to be made from, and that's why that terminology has stuck for some people. So a type of closure for a garment, maybe to replace a button, would be in America called snaps. Snaps are sometimes used in the UK, but that same object can be referred to as poppers or fasteners in the UK. I've even heard press studs. I'm not even sure which country, possibly both, for that specific haberdashery or notion item. So if you're American and you're talking about flannel, you're going to be talking about a type of fabric, which in the UK would be called brushed cotton or flannelette. If you are in the UK and you're talking about flannel, you're talking about the noun a flannel, which in the US would be called a washcloth or a face cloth. So if you're American and you're shopping in the UK and looking for flannel fabric, you're going to want to ask for brushed cotton or flannelette. Otherwise, they might think that you're looking for more like toweling or terry cloth fabric, which can definitely confuse the issue. What Americans would call rayon is going to be called viscose in the UK. So this is one fabric with two names, but they're exactly the same. So if you're looking online or you're going abroad and you're trying to buy this kind of fabric, whether it's called rayon or whether it's called viscose, it's exactly the same thing. So this last one had confused me for quite a while, and I've only just figured out the difference between these two things. So what Americans would be calling cotton drill fabric, which you'll often use to make like skirts, trousers, jackets, something a little bit more heavier weight. In the UK, that same exact fabric will be called cotton twill. Now, I thought I'd probably gotten confused with this because drill and twill are really similar. I couldn't imagine that they were the same thing with such similar names, but not the same name, if you know what I'm saying. So when I've looked into it, I've actually figured out and understood that, so twill is going to refer to the weave of the fabric. So anything that has a twill weave is going to have that diagonal weave going through it. Think of like denim as the most common example of twill weave. The cotton refers to what type of fiber is used to create that fabric. So a cotton twill is just cotton fibers woven into a twill weave. What Americans would call cotton drill, the word cotton is actually redundant because if you look up what drill is, drill fabric, drill is cotton twill specifically. So it's cotton fibers woven into a twill weave. So if you are looking for a cotton twill fabric and you're in the US, you're going to want to call that cotton drill. If you're going to be looking for that kind of fabric in the UK, you're going to find it listed as or described as cotton twill. So thanks for watching through. I hope that there's something that you got out of this video that you maybe didn't know before. If there's anything that you think I didn't get quite right or anything that I should have included, please do leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. If you liked my video today, please do like and subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again before long. Bye!